Brent, we're about to have Brandon Dodds on talking about Kudu Land Suite, and I want you to give a little intro to it and how people can get in touch if they're interested. So go for it.
If you know me or are a client of Dudley, you know and have heard us talk about the work that we're doing on our land system, Kudu. Kudu is a system built to do what we do as brokers and to provide you as a client everything that you've ever asked us to provide you. If you're interested in learning more about what we're doing, I'd love to give demos, love to show you how we're using this system on your projects, love to learn and hear about how you want a system to work for you. You know, is our system doing everything that you need it to do? Does your current systems do or not do everything you need it to do? If you want to learn more about what we're doing with Kudu, what our plans are with Kudu, how it can bring value to your project, give us a call. Love to talk to you about it.
Excellent. Thanks, man. Here's the episode with Brandon Dodds on a full demo of this land system, Kudu Land Suite.
When I first started, everything pretty much was on paper. You would fill out a paper report and everybody would just keep a big box of stuff. The computers got a little more involved, and then it was really just kind of living and breathing, for the most part, Microsoft Excel. And now I got Dropbox. We don't stop there. We've moved forward, and now we're at utilizing the database. We've started implementing Kudu. It's very capable for helping micromanage leasing and acquisition projects.
What are the advantages of using a database versus just my Dropbox?
It takes a lot of effort to figure out what is this I have in this Dropbox, what lands are covered, how much information is this. With a database, we can enter all that information into the system. With that, anytime you want, kick out a report that will summarize everything you've got.
It's actually just so much more structured and brings things into a really clean environment that you can just operate out of holistically, honestly. So very cool.
Land insights, market trends, industry experts. Welcome to the Land Department Podcast, the state of land and energy as we see it.
Brandon, you're a new guest here and excited to be recording today. Thanks for joining us. You're a prospect manager at the land company. How long have you been with the company?
I think it's been 8 years nearly at this point. It's been a bit. I haven't really been with time frames, but I think that's right. About 8 years. I've been, I think, 4 years as a prospect manager, and I was here in different capacities before that. So yeah, I've been trying to
Well,
avoid these. I don't like getting in front of you guys, but I'll do my best.
you could only stay away for so long.
hmm
Well, man, I'm excited to talk today. We're going to get really in the weeds on what it means to work as a landman inside of a database. For those that don't know what that is, that's okay. I have no idea either. I'm going to be learning from you, Brandon. Let's just talk about how land work is managed and stored historically. What are the systems that people are typically using?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for a while. I guess historically, when I first started, everything pretty much was on paper. So you would fill out a paper report, and everybody would just keep a big box of stuff. Essentially, you'd mail a big pile of paper to people. Computers got a little more involved, and then it was really just kind of living and breathing, for the most part, Microsoft Excel, um, and building reports on that and saving them somewhere on a computer and flash driving them. Now I got Dropbox, and so that's been kind of the thing. Excel's still very much a part of what people use, and we still use it too. But that's kind of like we don't stop there. We move forward, and now we're utilizing the database, which has a lot of benefits we can get into. But
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously Excel is one of the most powerful tools out there and everyone uses it, and that's really great. I think starting with Excel, starting with Word or handwritten, you just get a lot of manual data entry. You get inconsistent formatting based on what this guy likes to do versus what that person likes to do.
mhm.
And then the storing becomes this massive problem. What's inside of Dropbox versus on this laptop that's, in a different state, and it can get all over the place. I'm sure you have horror stories that you've been through with unclear organization of how do I even find this?
I'm living in them right now. Yeah, yep, yep. Still a
Absolutely.
problem.
So Dudley has always invested in technology. Back with Tom Dudley and the Calm system. Is it computer assisted land management system?
Yeah, they developed that in the early 2000s, and so that's been around. We've used that, and over the last couple of years, we've started implementing Kudu, which is kind of a new venture of us trying to propel that to the future. Columns is an old Oracle-based system, and was actually capable of doing quite a bit, but sort of an old technology. People need to be trained a little bit more in the field to utilize it. And so now Kudu is a way more expansive system. It's web based, so it's going to be a lot easier for our contractors to utilize it, for our clients to jump in and access it. So yeah, we're real excited about it, and it's growing every day. We're still in the process with it, but I'm going to be able to show you where we are now.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me really quick, Kudu is a database. Kind of what is a database, and then what are the advantages of using a database versus just my Dropbox?
So I have a lot of projects where I just kind of get, hey, here's a bunch of stuff we did in a Dropbox. So you got folders of whatever fashion they did there, and a bunch of ownership ports that are labeled all kinds of different ways. You kind of dig through it, and the formatting's different everywhere, and you really don't get a broad idea of what you have. It takes a lot of effort to figure out globally, like what is this I have in this Dropbox? What lands are covered? How much information is this? So with the database, we can enter all that information into the system, and with that, you can anytime you want kick out a report, and it will summarize everything you've got. You've got 10,000 gross acres of title in here. There's 750 tracks. There's this many owners. There's this many owners leased. This many owners unleased. It can answer a ton of questions and give you a real easy, broad idea of what you've got instead of a big bunch of fragmented information that you really just have to kind of rework to make sense of.
Yeah, I think there's several advantages to a database that a lot of people don't realize. Your data is structured right away. You're going to have consistent formatting from document to document. It's going to be in a clear organization system, not in a Dropbox folder where you don't know who named what folder what. You'll be able to pull reporting much faster. It's basically done almost for you rather than you having to manually create reports. And then I think two things that people don't realize about a database is that one, it can be cloud-based very easily, and then it can tie into your other tools that you want if you choose to create that integration yourself. So tons of advantages here. Let's talk about specifically Kudu as a database. So why don't you just kind of run through the capabilities of Kudu for us at a very high level?
Sure. So with Kudu, we can build this thing out at one, we can do it in kind of a mineral based world to support those projects, but we can also do it in surface dominant projects for CCS and renewables. It's very capable for helping micromanage leasing and acquisition projects, and you can get a very good sense of what's happening because all the activity that we do is built in the system, all the contact notes and the contact categories. The leases are generated, which maybe we'll touch on that more detail later, out of the system, which there's a lot of benefits to that to keep from inconsistencies and typos. Um, you can we have some new features that we're going to utilize out there, really interesting. But talking about tying into things, yeah, we have a way to just pull this into somebody's quorum. So some people might want to grab this data and internalize within their system. We can just basically hand it off and seamlessly integrate into whatever their tool they're using. Or if they're selling this later, they can do the same way, sell it to the buyer.
Okay, so we're gonna have you pull up your screen here, and
Okay.
I just want you to give us a tour of Kudu really quick. I've got some maybe questions that you can help us answer, but why don't you just give us like a general share your screen and run through really quick, and then I'll get into my questions.
Sure. So this data set here is, we're trying to incriminate any of our clients. So it's sort of a very generic bit of data that we put together. And so not all the leasehold data necessarily is here, but gives you an idea just so you can see how to navigate everything. You've got, set tabs up here. Right now I'm in basically the track level. So within this, you have sets of tracks, and each one of them you can click on it, jump in, and you will get a lot of great data. You got your grantor, grantee, you got all the source deed information. So important things that other groups don't tend to grab is we're keeping the examination type in the system. So sometimes just so there's a lease check done, and that's not really that usable for certain applications. This is full ownership. So this is really reliable data. There will be a cert date. Again, some of these numbers are quirky because we just built something to look at it, but This would be able to tell you what point in time did we run this, so you understand when you need to pick this up and update it if that's something you need to do. We can attach documents within this. So it's common where if we build out something, we have plats and source deeds. You can generate documents out of it. So if you need to build just a simple mineral ownership report, or like I said before, you can run complicated reports that will overarching reports on the whole data set or specific tracks. Here's your mineral ownership. And I guess I can maybe jump a little bit forward and just talk about how on a leasing level, if you were doing this, you could pull a contact category and say, I'm working this, and the buyer is Brandon Dodds. And so whenever we run reports, you're going to see this information. See Brandon Dodds assigned to these owners. They're working. Maybe this guy ends up not wanting to lease with us, and I can change his status to will not lease. But all this data is tracked. And then it's very easy to go in here and generate your leases, which are do we want to get into leasing right now or save that for a little
Sure,
later?
yeah. Yeah, let's walk through it.
On a leasing job, if you this is what we're doing here, or a waiver acquisition job, if this is a surface dominant project, either one would work similar. Our buyers can go in here and just generate a contract, an oil and gas lease, and this will pull in this module, will build it out. So what we tend to do is we get the client to approve a form, a waiver form, lease form, whatever it is. Those are all implemented to our system. So they fill out all these data points, but it will generate the exact lease form the client's preferred to use. Since everything's automated out of the data set, most of this is pre-filled out because you already know your ownership information, their address should be in the system, but it saves a lot of trouble because historically you have some lease buyers on Microsoft Word and they're just hand typing off of templates and kind of riffing and plugging in information in weird spots within the lease form. So this is really beneficial. The leasing process in our system really turns into kind of a stepwise program where you build it in here, that creates a new status. The lease comes back in. Our lease processing people in hand it. It's now another status. And all this shows up in all the reporting. All this lease information saved internally for forever. And within that, you can even play around with managing your leasehold data set, such as if there's option periods, we can like notate in the data set that we extended the option. It's now got an additional 2 years. It's all smartly built out. So, and another benefit is this guy has a bunch of tracks in the data set. So if you look at all of this, these are all the tracks in this data set that he owns within. You could select all of them, or maybe you're just wanting to lease maybe this one, and this one. You can see it auto kind of populate out in this legal description here. And again, that solves the problem of having some buyer go and typing all this up and maybe messing up the legal description and causing you to go back and redo a lease.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. And going forward, client approved clauses. If you guys are okay with the no surface use and a Q clause, we get your approved forms. They're in the system, and all our buyers end up doing when they're building this out is just clicking some boxes and they automatically add them to an exhibit for the lease. So it's all right here. You can go down here and you generate out your documents. Here's me generating a lease. You can click this, generate the LPR, the memo, the order of payment. It makes it all really simple. And if it's all within the database, it's all easy to track. Numbers, if you have questions about how many acres have you leased, if we're kind of riffing on a leasing project, I can share. This is an output from this data set.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to run a report. I would love to see it.
Yeah. This is one I just pre-ran it, so we didn't have to wait on it. But this is giving you an idea in this data set. There's 6,000 acres. There's 149 owners. There's 58 tracks, and within it, we've got 162 acres in a working status. Those are people that we're trying to lease at this point. It's 34 owners, 11 tracks. Those are in the working category. If we start taking leases, at some point we commit that owner. So the acreage would move around to show that. Negotiating, all these terms fill out this data. And then if this is a report we're doing week over week for status updates, which is typically probably what we would do, you can see a weekly in-handed lease value and a committed value. Just see turnover to see, hey, how slow is Dudley moving through this? And you can also it helps with budgeting. If you see we got, hopefully 300 acres committed, next week there's gonna be a bunch of bonus need to be coming out. So it helps with a lot of internal planning.
Yeah. Now,
And
this
all
whole
these tabs
this whole
are accessible.
report was generated just by clicking a couple buttons in Kudu, and then the report's generated.
Yeah.
Right?
Where's my Chrome? It's really simple as going to this reports tab, and you just are clicking. These are all different types of reports in the system that we can access and generate. So in this case, that was just the lease status report. I just click it and it kicks out the system. And you can run any of these reports and limit it. So if you wanted, you could go to a lease status report and only select certain tracks or tracks on an abstract and have a limited report if that's what you're doing. So you may have a big data set, but you're only trying to lease in the east half of it. We can run reports only on that part and disregard the other half because it's not pertinent to leasing. So
Okay. And so previously, without Kudu, to be able to get that lease status report, how would you develop that? Would it just be a manual process of
you'd
gathering
have a
data and
long
putting it all
running
together?
Excel spreadsheet, probably. I mean, that's really
Right.
the only way to do it. There'd be a running spreadsheet, and with the spreadsheet, it's hard to do things like, how many tracks are owned by John Doe. You kind of would have that in spreadsheet, but it'd probably be on a bunch of rows and look kind of weird. With us, you can kick that out by just querying that owner in the data set, and you can actually go to the owners tab and say maybe SLR. SLR property. There was SLR property. I search them and look at that. Here's all their tracks. Here's contact notes related to that owner. So on different tracks within the system, this is feedback on how that's going. And
Yeah.
that's basically always accessible here in this little owner tab. And then if we had a lease buyer assigned, you would see all these lease buyer be filled here, category, working or committed, all that's accessible right there as well. And then you're also saying this is an open tract. If these were leased, it would show it's HVP, your primary term leased. All that's accessible there too. So that's hard to get that much information in front of your eyes that easily when you're just in a spreadsheet.
Now, obviously, Dudley's the one that's primarily working inside of Kudu to manage a project, to add data. But from the client side, if I'm a client of Dudley, I get access to this and I'm able to run these reports myself.
Yeah, we can pull you in as a remote access user, and you can navigate this just like we are. So you can
Yeah.
query all this information. And again, those reports that we can kick out, some of them are very, very detailed, and it's possible that that's really all you would want to. So this is a project overview report. Another example. Hit the back end of this if you want to. You got raw data. This is just a full tab of basically every type of data point in the system accessible to you, which you can grab this and filter it and do a lot with it. If you're messing with an internal system at your company, that's probably a great way to pull a lot of information together. But
Wow. That's fantastic. So if I'm starting a new project somewhere and we want to get started with some data, you were telling me a little bit about some of the capabilities, especially if the project's like on the East Coast. What are some of the things that you would do to set that up?
yeah, some projects over there, you can go to like a county appraisal district site, grab data from them, and we can pretty much just port that into Kudu and quickly build out a bunch of tracks, just to hit the ground running. And with that, you can pretty much build out internal maps. But that helps when you're in the CAD. It's maybe hard to tell what owners are around you quickly, and this way you can query just like we did before and find where this one owner owns within a big field. So yeah, it's pretty versatile. Similarly, I mean, if somebody has spreadsheet data from some other project they're running, or for example, if they have kind of a rat's nest of title from a different client's project and they want us to memorialize all this data into one set, we can pull all of that in and solve the problem of having 9 brokers all using different ownership reports and having all this chaos. You can pull all into this and have it all seamless.
Okay, so if I want to understand working interest a little bit better, how can Kudu help with that?
Yeah. So some really detailed answers you can get out of Kudu. One, yeah, if you're trying to, if you, the question is what's my work interest or NRI and maybe like a unit area, we can go and we can select a set of tracks specific to what where you're planning to produce, and we can run a report of that selection of tracks, and it will summarize all that information, and even down to the horizon, and it will be able to tell you your working interest, what other lessees are in the area, how much of it's open or unleased, calculate an NRI, give you an idea of override. You can do all that in one summary report, which is really valuable for a lot of clients. That ability for Kudu to kind of do some complex calculations is really helpful. You can really, even with the way we track horizons in the system, everything's built out into horizons. You can label a target horizon and it will disregard other horizons that you're not interested in, but we still might have that information memorialized. But the way it does that, you can even do some quirky stuff where you might be trying to figure out the ownership into a horizon that doesn't really exist in title. So if you have a tract over here that is from surface to 10,000 feet, and then the next tract is surface 7,000 feet, you can kind of come up with just a weird interval of what's going on in the interim, just with what's a common depth between the 3 tracks, and it'll come up with an ownership set for that.
Oh, really, really, really cool to see what's capable. I think it's not just that it's adding value through convenience and being able to do things faster, but it's actually just so much more structured and brings things into a really clean environment that you can just operate out of holistically, honestly. So very cool. So tons of questions being able to be answered like basically immediately. What's my leasehold position in a set of tracks? What are my working interests? What's my net revenue interest? Who are the service owners in this area? Who are the other leaseholders in the area?
Mhm.
Is it all leased or not? Right. So really, really, really valuable. I want to hear some client stories because I know that there's been some moments where Kudu's really shined. You were telling me about a tract of land that, or tracts of land that you've been working on yourself through Kudu, and it's passed from 3 different companies. Why don't you kind of share how Kudu's helped with that?
Sure. Some smaller outfits like backed companies that used to use, even back in McCollum's days, they would really kind of lean on our databases, their internal land system to some degree. We would memorialize all their information. So we would have years of work built into columns back then for them, and eventually they would sell the asset to a company, and we would port all that columns information over to the next company. And in one of these circumstances, that went to another company that kind of need to use our land system. So really, they just kind of followed columns over, and we worked for them, and then that company decided to sell the asset again, and that went to another company. And at that point, they kind of wanted to pull all this into Quorum, which we poured into Quorum, and we're still helping work their projects now. So that was a that was a good story. And I guess another one I know that we're going to ask me about. It's another a big benefit to databases is another client had approached me because they worked with us in 2008 in columns, and we did a ton of title for them back in the day, and they were essentially going to move all this title to another company. Their title was going to buy their information, and they approached us and they're like, "Hey, I'm just curious if you have all this stuff," and we had it all still in the database, had all the data sets, so we were able to go and pull that in and quickly tell this new group that's going to inherit it how many acres we have in our system, how many tracts of title we have, when we ran it, and it was all in one place. It was searchable. Whereas some of the other groups they work with, it's just kind of a Dropbox full of stuff, and we're still kind of churning through that, trying to make sense of, how many acres is this? We're trying to get this on a map, and it's extremely more challenging. Whereas ours, I was able to tell them within an hour exactly what we had, which was great.
How long have you been working through that Dropbox?
We've been on it for, I mean, it's probably been about a month now, and we're still trying to make sense of it. It's just a little, it's difficult, but we're getting there.
That's wild. So an hour to get the information versus a month of probably really costly time to do that. Now, what if they wanted to redo, like, hey, we didn't store all that in columns in the database or Kudu, um, but so we have to go and redo all that work. What would that have costed them?
Just broad numbers, but I think that we threw out. Let's just say there's a you're paying $500 a landman is just like an easy round number, and maybe every tract is, let's say it's taking you 8 days to do a mineral tract, which is honestly probably pretty conservative. I think that we kind of figured that was what do we come up here. So I think that's where I got 500 times eight, and let's say there's 500 tracks. That's $2 million. So it's millions of dollars of intellectual data that is really beneficial to hold on to, and it's for that part. And with this project, there's over 30,000 acres that we had in our database. So if you kind of think about redoing all of that, it would have been really, really costly. So big
Yeah.
value. And so now instead of that, we're just having to update it from the early 2000s to current, where instead of starting over from scratch.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, a big thing to realize is that your data is only as valuable as it is accessible. Like having all that data that you're continuing to sift through for over a month, like, yeah, it's still valuable, but now you're spending a lot of money just to get it clean and accessible. So being able to have that from the get-go with Kudu is fantastic. Now, Kudu is something that you by default work on with every single project at Dudley. So clients get access to something like this when they work with Dudley. What are some of the upcoming features that we haven't talked about that are continually being added and improved inside of Kudu?
Sure. If you look, if I'm kind of reporting the screen again, there one big one is on this mapping tab. We're fleshing this out. So the idea behind this is that we're going to have a full GIS kind of internal module, and you'll be able to go and explore your owner data like it's on one of our maps, and click on parcels and be able to just pop up and see ownership, and probably query it in a visual way through our kind of map environment. So that's
It's
exciting. We're
huge.
working on. Um, and we're always playing up stuff. We really just released a run sheet routing feature, which is great. So if you've got us doing a ton of sovereignty run sheets and churning them out, going to a title attorney, this is essentially going to be able to let you. Here's kind of the basis of it. You can go and select what tracks you're updating, list which title attorney you're dealing with, which landman's doing the title, reference a well, abstract number. There's a bunch of data points here. And ultimately, you can kind of have a timeline. You can see week over week where we mention where we are in the process of kicking out your run sheets. And you can have
Wow.
kind of it sort of helps you look at, well, from a tract basis, where is our title status within the project? How old are some of my title opinions? We might have done this for you in 2012, and now they're kind of dated, and you might need to update them. So that's another valuable tool. And again, with information like that, when we kick out maps with our JS team, you can do a title status map, and we can do that regardless of this. But if you were doing a run sheet based title status map, they would automatically be able to pull this data to color that up, so you can visually see where everything is. You're trying to drill wells where you have full title coverage. So that's another great feature we're working on.
Man, so this was just a really great like cursory overview. But if someone wanted the more personalized demo for their needs and what they're hoping to accomplish with their project, obviously the Kudu land system is default for every project at Dudley. So when you work with Dudley on a project, you're going to get access to Kudu. But if they want to understand what that's like and how Kudu can actually benefit them on their project, how could they get in touch with you for a more personalized demo?
Yeah. Again, I'm Brandon Dodds, Dudley Land Company, and one of the managers here. Just you can reach out through the hotline or email me. We would love to show you a personalized demo. It's with this being global, it's hard for me to show too much on my screen, but we can probably drum up something more specific to exactly what you're looking for and give you a good idea of how it can benefit you going forward. So we'd love that opportunity. So please reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, Brandon, thank you for your time. We finally did it. It wasn't that bad, right? I dragged you in. We got through it. No, I appreciate all of your knowledge and your willingness to share this information. And yeah, maybe we'll have you back on again.
I bet you don't really want me to, but
All
saying that.
right, we'll see you around.
All right, thank you.
Enjoyed today's topic? Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Learn more at dudley-land.com. See you next episode.